Can you eat more, please? It seems that food corporations have got it made. The U.S. government helps pay for their raw materials, but they make more money from selling food than farmers. But they have one big problem that limits their sales: the size of the human stomach. Unlike many other products, CDs, say, or books, there's a natural limit to how much food we can each consume without exploding. Try as we might, the average person can only eat about 1,500 pounds of food a year. The demand for food rises only as fast as the population grows. In the US, that's around 1% per year. This leaves food companies like General Mills with two choices. They can figure out how to get people to spend more money for the same amount of food, or they can get us to eat more food than we need. Which do they choose? Why, both, of course. Processing food allows companies to charge more for it. Consumers will only pay so much for an ear of corn, but they can be convinced to pay a lot more for the same corn if it's been turned into a funny shape, sweetened, and brightly colored. The industry calls this adding value. Added value can be anything. It might be the convenience of a dinner you just pop in the microwave, or it might be a feeling like, this food product is good for me. Or it might be that a food is fun to eat, like rigid potato chips or cereal bars. That's why food companies spend so much on advertising to convince us that they really have added value to the corn and soybeans. They also try to convince us that their corn or chickens or apples are better and worth more than those of another company. They don't want us to buy just any old chicken, but Tyson chicken or Purdue. They don't want us to buy any old oat cereal. They want us to buy Cheerios. Companies can also try to convince us that their food is healthier, even a sort of medicine. We're used to having vitamins and minerals added to our food. Of course, manufacturers wouldn't need to add them if they just hadn't removed them during processing, and some manufacturers are going even further than adding vitamins. One company called Treetop has developed a low-moisture, naturally sweetened apple piece infused with a red wine extract. Natural chemicals in red wine called flavonoids are thought to fight cancer, so Treetop has added value to an apple by injecting it with flavonoids from red wine. It seems that an old-fashioned apple just isn't enough anymore. We need an apple that fights cancer. We need an orange juice with calcium that builds strong bones. We need oat cereal that keeps us from having a heart attack.
Can you eat more, please? Part 2. So food companies have been very successful at getting us to pay more for the same food. But what about their money-making scheme to get us to buy and eat more food than we need? How has that worked out? Well, let's see. 3 of every 5 Americans are overweight. 1 of every 5 is obese. Among kids, it's almost as bad. 17% of kids aged 6 through 19 are obese. This is a giant public health problem, costing the healthcare system an estimated $90 billion a year. The disease formerly known as adult onset diabetes has had to be renamed type 2 diabetes since it now occurs so frequently in children, and the Centers for Disease Control estimates that 1 in 3 American children born in 2000 will develop it. Diabetes can mean blindness, amputation, and early death. Because of diabetes and all the other health problems caused by obesity, kids in the U.S. today may turn out to be the first group of Americans with the lifespans that are shorter than their parents. To put it simply, Americans are getting fatter and it's killing us. You hear plenty of explanations for why expanding waistline. We sit in all day at desk in school or at work, then sit around all night watching television. We play video games instead of sports. Fast food advertising encourages us to eat supersized meals. It is actually cheaper to eat high-calorie, fatty processed foods than whole foods. All these explanations are true, but they don't tell us the whole story. Extra calories. Behind our epidemic of obesity lies this simple fact. When food is abundant and cheap, people will eat more of it. Since 1977, an American's average daily intake of calorie has jumped by more than 10%. Since we aren't exercising more, the calories end up being stored away in fat cells in our body. Where did all those cheap calories come from? If you've read this far, you already know the answer. Most of them come from cheap corn. Since 1970, farmers in the United States have managed to produce 500 additional calories per person every day. The average person needs about 200 calories a day, but that number varies greatly depending on your age, size, and amount of exercise. Where are those extra calories going? Some are sold overseas. Some are turned into ethanol for our cars, but a lot of them are going into us. An awful lot of those extra corn calories are being eaten as high fructose corn syrup. Not surprisingly, HFCS is the leading source of sweetness in our diet.
Supersize. Soda makers don't deserve credit for the invention of supersizing. That belongs to a man named David Wallerstein. In the 1950s, Wallerstein worked for a chain of movie theaters in Texas. Movie theaters make most of their profits from their snack counters, not from ticket sales. It was Wallerstein's job to figure out how to sell more soda and popcorn. Wallerstein tried everything he could think of, but found he simply could not get customers to buy more than one soda and one bag of popcorn. He thought he knew why. Going for seconds makes people feel piggish. Wallerstein discovered that people would buy more popcorn and soda, a lot more, as long as it came in a single giant serving. Thus was born the 2-quart bucket of popcorn and the 64-ounce Big Gulp. In 1968, Wallerstein went to work for McDonald's, but try as he might, he couldn't convince Ray Kroc, the company's founder, to try supersizing. If people want more fries, Kroc told him, they can buy 2 bags. Wallerstein explained that McDonald's customers wanted more but didn't want to go buy a second bag. They don't want to look like gluttons. Finally, Kroc gave in and approved supersizing proportions, and what followed was a dramatic rise in sales. People had been holding back because they didn't want to seem greedy. Now Wallerstein and McDonald's have figured out a way to make them feel okay about eating more. After all, it was still just eating one serving, even if it was twice the size. They had discovered the secret to expanding the supposedly fixed human stomach. One might think that people would stop eating and drinking these huge proportions as long as they felt full, but it turns out hunger doesn't work that way. Researchers have found that people and animals will eat up to 30% more if they're given larger portions. Our eating habits were formed over millions of years of evolution. Early humans who lived by hunting and gathering didn't always have enough food. Our bodies tell us to eat more when we have the chance, because hunger might be just around the corner. The problem is that with the mountain of cheap corn, hunger never comes, at least not for most Americans. In the same way, our built-in instincts tell us to eat lots of sugar and fat. Humans, like most other warm-blooded creatures, have a built-in sweet tooth. The taste of sugar or fat tells our body we're eating an energy-rich food. Our instinct is to eat as much as we can, in case we don't find food tomorrow. Yet in nature, we would never find a fruit with anywhere near the amount of fructose in a soda. We would never find a piece of animal flesh with as much fat as a chicken nugget. You begin to see why processing foods is such a good way of getting people to eat more. The fast food chains have been able to build foods that push our evolutionary buttons. Huge amounts of sweets and fats fool our instincts, and we wind up eating much more than we should. Animal experiments prove this so. Rats presented with solutions of pure sugar or tubs of pure lard will gorge themselves sick. Cheap fat. Surprisingly, the health problems of eating too much hit poor people hardest. That's because if you count the calories, foods loaded with sugar and fat are the cheapest foods in the market. A recent study showed that this was true. In a typical supermarket, $1 could buy 1,200 calories of potato chips and cookies. The same dollar could only buy 250 calories of carrots and other whole vegetables. On the beverage aisle, you can buy 875 calories of soda for $1, but $1 will only buy you 170 calories of fruit juice from concentrate. These numbers show why people with limited money to spend on food spend it on the cheapest calories they can find. It makes even more sense when you realize that those cheap calories rewind our instincts for fat and sugar. King corn shoved the other plants and animals off the farm. Now it's winning out the supermarket too. It is so cheap and comes in so many different forms that the other food just can't compete. As we've seen, it has a lot of help. The U.S. government, spending taxpayers' dollars, helps pay farmers to grow corn and soybeans, but not to grow carrots. That means the government helped pay for your soft drink or cookies, but it won't help pay for green vegetables. One part of the government puts our food pyramids telling you to eat more fruits and vegetables and fewer sweets. Meanwhile, another part of the government is making it cheaper for you to eat more sweets. The government says it wants you to eat healthy, then it makes sure that the cheapest calories are in the supermarket are the unhealthiest. Talk about mixed messages.